Okay, so I ran out of daylight yesterday, but not before I was able to get a good impression of the ASC-2500. And so before I talk about that, I actually want to go back and fly the old drone, the Propel Flex 2.0, which, believe it or not, still works. You're going to have to take my word on that, but it does work. So I want to just show you in video how far these two have come in quality, and let me just tell you now, it's a big difference. So the idea here is we're going to take one drone at a time and fly it over the same circuit, which is probably going to be just out across our garden a little bit, turning around and just coming straight back. Very simple, but the sun's shining from over there. It's early afternoon right now, so it's shining over from that way. So heading out, we'll have good lighting, and on the way back, we're not going to have such good lighting because it's going right into the sun. But we're going to see how each one of them does, and starting with the old one, the Flex 2.0. So we'll just set our ASC aside here. And I checked the remotes together. They aren't compatible, just for the record. Yep, so fully charged battery and everything. Camera pointing forward for both of them. And as I said before, this one only goes to 45 degrees. But anyway, I'm just testing it on camera pointing straight forward. Little bit of breeze, not much though, nothing that this can't handle, and I would know because I've flown it. So, we got our phone here, the phone that won't stay charged, and we're going to load up our app for this one. They're different apps, just so you know. Okay, and I forgot, with this one you actually need a little screwdriver to turn it on. Just press a little button, because, you know, turning it on. We'll watch from this little table here. Okay, turning on the remote. Binding. And we're going to get out here. Okay, launching the app. Start. And we have it right here. Start recording. And it's counting down there. Alright, so let's take off and head out there. See, still flies. Put it on speed 2. This will not be a highly accurate test. This is just for demonstration purposes only. And we're turning around, heading back. So the biggest difference, honestly, I've noticed so far. Oh, which way am I going? I'm going the right way now. A little bit headwind. The biggest thing I've noticed so far is the Wi-Fi quality, believe it or not. The old one is actually much better. It's more videos you may have seen. I was able to fly this with a pair of VR goggles on, because that's how smooth the Wi-Fi is. You can basically fly it in real time. The new one, however, is a different story. But here we come. We're going to land this. This might be a little tricky. Here, we're landing. Come on. There we go. Alright, so that was the Propel Flex 2.0. Okay, switching drones and remotes here. Alright, let's fire this one up. Yeah, the Wi-Fi on this new one, yeah, it's just awful. So if it wasn't for the SD card, the micro SD card, I think it'd be pretty much useless. I think that's what they focused on. If it wasn't for that, that's what's saving this thing, really. But the Wi-Fi is very bad. It must be the channel, or I don't know what it is, but it's just, as you'll see, I'll record both the Wi-Fi transmission, but also the SD card, and I'll show you them side by side just so you can get a taste of what it looks like. It's night and day, like, there's no question. But for now, let's just head over to our app and get started here. And we're starting, record video and photos, and we're starting the video. I'm not showing photos in this video. I'm just going to do just the video footage. Okay, but here we go. We're ready, and let's get started. There we go. Headed out. This one's much zippier, if I can say that. Much bigger too. Okay, we're turning around. We might need speed 2 to come back. Yep. Facing a little headwind. Okay, so I might do that a few times if the shots aren't good enough, just so they're comparable. But there we are. Much quicker too, I think. Our Ascend Aeronautics drone is back, also known as the AMAX drone. And there we go. Also, one thing, just in case you didn't know or didn't say before, you press these two buttons on the top simultaneously to get it to stop in an emergency or when you're landing, just to stop the propellers. Okay, that was the AMAX, the second one. Whoa. Okay, so what are my thoughts, opinions, impressions on this Ascend Aeronautics ASC-2500? Well, first of all, I would say that this is not a comparison video between these two necessarily. I was comparing them just to see how far we've got in 1 year. But after doing some research, I found that this is completely different from the Flex 2.0. They're totally different, and I can see that. You can tell they're made by the same companies because of how the app's set up and how they even behave in flight, things like that. But they are obviously very different in terms of size, in terms of technology, in terms of, well, pretty much everything. So I'm not comparing them directly, but I will say, for this, the biggest winner is probably, well, two things combined, is the video quality, which is much better. It's 1080p, which, by the way, is more than this 720, which I didn't realize this was 720, but it is, and this is 1080, and I believe it. So the camera's much better on this, and the optical flow actually works. I did an extra little test after I did the video comparison between the two, and even taped up the optical flow sensor, the little camera on the bottom of the ASC-2500, and it actually makes a difference. You can see it wandering around, just trying to just fly away, basically, because it was a windy day. I also tried it against the old Flex 2.0, and the Flex 2.0 just drifted too. So the optical flow definitely made a huge difference, and just makes it easier to film. It does have some little blips every now and then when you're trying to like go up. It gets a little wobbly, but you know, it's not perfect, and what do you expect for a $90 drone? And that's just it. Considering what today's market, especially in Canada, can get you $90 for, it's really not bad, I wouldn't say. There are a few cons, though, that I would like to address. Guess what? I'm actually human. I need notes here. First of all, this is a complaint I've seen in reviews, and I have noticed something of the sort, that it just keeps, every now and then, or immediately out of the box, however it happens, when you hit the auto takeoff or landing, or even if you manually launch it, it'll sometimes keep going straight up and up and up, and people have had it never come back. I've had several times it go up, and it doesn't stop going up until you pull the like the altitude control joystick back down. And once it didn't even do that, and that's how I crashed. I did crash this once already. I have already crashed this. You can't fly a drone without crashing. That's my rule. Anyway, I've already crashed this once because I had to shut off the props because it just kept going up and up and up. I couldn't get it to come down. So that would be a big concern, and definitely something they should fix. Is it a deal breaker? Well, you decide. The next thing is the battery. It does have a big battery, which is like the two sides of the coin. It can be a good thing and also a bad thing. It's good because it'll last a while. 1900 milliamp hours is quite a bit, so it will last about 15 to 20 minutes in my experience, which is great. In the RC hobby, especially for drones, camera drones, budget drones, that's a good while for it to last. However, that means it charges a long time, and by a long time, I mean like 3.5 hours. It says it should do in 2.5 hours, but I wasn't finding that. Maybe just my experience, or maybe I need to continue charging the battery a little. I don't know. It's in my experience, and I've only charged it a couple times, so that's something to definitely think about. Although it's kind of nice because you just use a micro USB cable, just a plain old micro USB cable that
plugs right into the battery to charge it. No adapters required, whereas this one you need a special charging cable, and it made no sense. If you got multiple batteries and want to charge them at the same time, you would have to buy multiple of those special charging cables. So I like that about this, that you can get multiple batteries and charge them all just with a normal micro USB. Although, let me tell you, it's hard to also find the like the batteries that fit this, so whatever. Next thing is this is a big thing I've noticed. It doesn't have prop guards. This one came with prop guards. Most of them on the market do. So I don't know why this didn't. It's not that this one was meant for outdoor use and this wasn't, because both of them say for outdoor use. So I don't know why it didn't come with prop guards. I personally don't care because I'm not a beginner and I don't crash it all the time. And honestly, I think it does better without. But if you're a beginner, even flying in close space, though it may not be recommended, or even just around buildings and vehicles and things like that, it's just nice to have a little bit of extra protection. So that's one thing I noticed it doesn't have. And of course, well, I feel like they focus more on the drone on this one and less on the app functions, because compared to this, it's got way less functions. If you see the old one, it had all sorts of, you could wear VR goggles and all sorts of things, all sorts of different settings and modes and such, which I found cool for that one, because there's all sorts of things you could do with it. This one, however, is pretty bare bones. Although, in the end, it's kind of okay that it doesn't have something like VR, because I noticed, and this is probably the biggest problem with this, is that the Wi-Fi is terrible on it. I can't figure out how they went from this 1 year ago to having great Wi-Fi to that, which is like, you just can't even use it. In the test I did this afternoon, it actually worked okay, surprisingly, but there was that big chunk in the middle, if you'll see in the clip, that it just basically cuts out like 15 seconds of flight time. So that's just no good, especially if you're trying to like fly with goggles, but it doesn't have that option anyway. So, you know, if it wasn't for the micro SD card, I think this, I would probably call this a failure for a camera drone, but the micro SD card saved it, and I actually like it better because it's even smoother than this on Wi-Fi. But you know, that's just one thing, is if you're trying to fly it off the controller looking at your phone, it's just not doable. Strangely, I don't know how they managed to do that, but I had fun flying this with VR goggles. And if that's what you want, is a good Wi-Fi feed, go for that. If you want good video quality, go for that. And when I say good video quality, I'm not talking about like GoPro sort of quality. This is a budget camera drone. What do you expect? It's $90. Well, I could probably just keep going on and on about this and that and the next thing, but you know what? You probably just want to hear it. After all that, just hear it from me straight. Would I recommend this drone, and would it be any good for beginners? Well, let me start by saying this. There's only so much in today's market that $90 can get you, especially here in Canada, and I think this is great value. I think you get a lot for it. It's far from perfect, but you know what? I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect drone anyway, especially a budget drone. So I think as a budget drone, this is great, and it's going to be a great addition to my collection, and hopefully it's not going to end up looking like this. With every drone, I get a little better at flying, so let's hope this one will stay in nicer shape. But with that said, I actually wouldn't recommend this for beginners, partly due to the fact that it's kind of big. It doesn't have prop guards. And it just can be a little more daunting, and not to mention it's a little more expensive. So what I would actually recommend is getting started with a really cheap, like $20 Amazon drone. Doesn't even have to have a camera on it. Just get the hang of using the controls, because it can be really daunting when you get a big drone and you get it up in the air and then you freak out because you don't know what you're doing. So I would say just get a cheap one to start, learn the controls, and once you have that knowledge, that muscle memory, that you could just like make the drone do what you want it to do, then I would say go get a big one like this. Make sure what you're practicing on is like a manually controlled drone, not like one of those mind-controlled drones or ones you control with your hand or whatever. So I would just say start with a cheap one, get used to the controls, and don't be afraid to crash it. and then move on to something bigger, more expensive like this. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you found it useful and informative and maybe even a little bit entertaining. In any case, make sure you subscribe to see more videos about drones and, well, probably other things, because, you know, I'm a mechanic. I'm not really a drone review guy. But give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy the video, and give me a thumbs down if you really feel the need. But make sure, give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy the video, and give me a thumbs down if you really feel the need. But remember, if you do, you have to tell me why. I always forget what to say after that. Give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy the video, and give me a thumbs down if you really feel the need. But make sure, if you do, you have to tell me why. Alright, see you later, guys. G-Force over and out. Oh, and you probably should read the instructions. They're quite good, and you'll learn a lot from them. Yes. Running so wild, unlocked a piece of me. Yeah, felt so hard, brushed the dirt off my knees. Face to face with the future, scared but not scared to try. I feel the rain, feel the thunder, but I calling every dream inside my head, shooting for the clouds, I'm not done yet. Cause we could take on the world tonight. We could take on the world. I can feel the stardust in my veins. A million lights gonna guide my way. Feels like we could take on the world tonight. If we burn this bright, we can never fade. We could take on the world tonight. We could take on the world. Face to face with the future, scared but not scared to try. I feel the rain, feel the thunder, but I